Hello and welcome to the AESQ Supplier Forum. My name is Ian Riggs and I'm the chair of the AESQ. I'm also the Rolls-Royce Quality Executive for Assembly and Test based in Derby, England. Next slide please, Becky. One of the benefits of having a virtual supplier forum like this, it clearly opens up who can attend to a much greater audience. So today we are really pleased to say we've got over 1,600 people registered from 41 different countries. So hello to everybody that's waking up nice and early on the West Coast, all the way through to the people who are staying up late in Asia, and everybody else in between. Normally the supplier forums we hold are live events, conference style events, that give us an opportunity to share what the AESQ is working on. We also have examples of best practice from suppliers and from member companies. And also it's an opportunity for people who are using the standards to give us feedback on what's working and what can be improved. And over the years, we've developed a really useful network of practitioners and subject matter experts on which we can get ideas and improvement ideas to actually make our work even better going forward. Thanks, Becky. This supplier forum, we're going to focus on one key topic, and that's the publication of AS 13100, which was published on March the 1st. Over the last 2 years, the AESQ has looked at developing a single standard to replace large parts of the customer specific standards we've been using, and also to develop a set of best practice guidance documents that can help in the deployment of the key quality tools for defect prevention to get to our journey of zero defects. So that's what we're going to focus on for the next 3 hours. So the agenda, what we're going to hear from today are all of the key leaders from AESQ and subject matter experts from across the company. In the first half, we're going to give you a little bit of background about AESQ and what our goals and vision are. And then I will take you through an overview of the 13100 standard. And then Martin Schaffner and a number of subject matter experts will take you through the reference manuals. And out of the 13 we've published, we're going to focus on 4 today, just to give you some insight into the content and the benefit of using the reference manuals. So the ones we'll use today are going to be problem solving, quality audit, human factors, and APQP and PPAP. After the break, we're going to change gear and we're going to look at how we are deploying these standards and guidance and support materials we have to help anybody in the supply chain to really get the most out of the deployment of these standards and reference manuals. So Emmanuel will take us through the subject matter interest groups and how we are developing communities of practice to share our experience on what works and what best practice there is out there. Lisa will take you through the available training to help support the deployment. And Osa will also give us a typical deployment plan that takes us through from where we are today to full deployment by the end of 2022. And then June will take us through how to get more involved in AESQ activities and how to stay engaged with the work of the AESQ. And at the end, we will hand over to Jamie, who will summarize all the key messages from the next 3 hours, but also there'll be an opportunity to ask any questions of the team as well. And you can do that by using the chat function. So as we go through, don't wait till the end, as we go through each presentation, if you have a question, or if you just want to make a comment, you can edit it on the chat function, submit it to all panelists, and then we will actually go through that and get the sort of key themes or key questions, and Jamie will take us through those questions and use the panel we have to actually do our best to answer those in this event. As Becky said, we will be recording this WebEx and making it available. We will also make sure we collate all of the questions that come through today, and we'll be putting a frequently asked questions page on the website to be able to share the responses to those questions. So with that in mind, let's get started. We have a lot of material to get through, which is our key challenge for the day. And we begin with Barbara Negroe from GE, who are going to take us through an overview of the AESQ.
Great, thank you, Ian. My name is Barbara Negroe. I lead the Supplier Quality Organization for GE Aviation, and I'm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what AESQ is and why we are an organization, why we gathered together to try to make an impact on the aerospace industry. Next page. All right. So back in 2013, the aero engine manufacturers created a collaboration working group. The reason for this group was to address the burning platform of the time, and it included key global suppliers. We used the automotive example of QS 9000 with Ford, GM, and Chrysler as the model moving forward. What is the burning platform? Airline passengers are set to double in size over the next 20 years. We all know that we've taken a slight hit to that over the last year, but this is still on pace and is happening. Customers expect zero defects. There's an increasing level of supplier-made engine content, so outside of the OEM's directly owned shops. Global supplier footprint. So large number of common suppliers between the engine manufacturers. A wide range of those suppliers in the aerospace manufacturers, anywhere from less than $1 million annual revenue to over $2 billion. And then improving cost, quality, delivery continue to remain a key challenge. Next page. So what is our purpose? The AESQ purpose is to simplify and standardize aero engine supplier requirements through the removal of duplication and waste. And I think we'll show you throughout today how we have diligently worked to obtain that goal. Create a common language for quality, build on existing industry standards where they exist, create requirements that are simple, prescriptive, and auditable, promote the use of standardized third-party training to provide consistency throughout the supply base, deliver results with pace, and focus on effective deployment and improving the capability of the shared supply chains. Who are members, key voting members of the AESQ? So we have here GE Aviation, Pratt & Whitney, Rolls-Royce, Safran Aircraft Engines, Honeywell Aerospace, MTU Aero Engines, GKN Aerospace, PCC Structurals, Howmet Aerospace, and IHI. So you can see it's a good mix of OEMs as well as key global suppliers. This is just a quick reference of who the voting members are from each member company. Great group of passionate individuals that take their time away from their jobs to ensure that our supply base continues to thrive and grow and improve quality throughout the aero engine manufacturing supply base. Next page. So our vision is to establish and maintain a common set of quality requirements that enable the global aero engine supply chain to be truly competitive through lean, capable processes, and a culture of continuous improvement. Going back to 2012, 2013, when this all began, I want to lay out a landscape of what the requirements looked like from a OEM as well as a global supplier for the engine manufacturers. So we always have our regulator requirements. We combine those with customer requirements, which is the actual requirements of the plane manufacturers, and our industry requirements, which include NADCAP, IAQG, as well as ISO. We combine those and build the aero engine manufacturer requirements, and each of us have our own unique requirements for that. So the Rolls-Royce has Sabre, GE has S1000, Pratt & Whitney has ASQR, and Safran has SAFE. Each of you are flowed as a supplier to the OEMs, are flowed those requirements down. And from an engine manufacturer, you're in a supply base, you're trying to take each one of those and meet our requirements. We didn't feel like that was the most productive way to flow down those requirements. So we decided to form the AESQ to try and improve and standardize that. Next page. Over the last 8 or so years, we've been diligently working to meet those goals. So as we have taken time to come together and pull some of the unique OEM requirements out to form standards, we have created the AS 13004, which is PFMEA and control plans, AS 13003, which is MSA or measurement system analysis, AS 13006, process control methods, 13002, inspection frequency plans. In addition to AS 13000, problem solving requirements, or 8D, and 13001, which is the delegated DPRV. So those are all release standards that we have been working towards over the last few years. What we've done with those standards is have in-person supplier forums. This is virtual, but we're very happy we can get so many people on. We've had in-person supplier forums around the world where we've taken the suppliers in, listened to the voice of the supplier, what we can do to improve and standardize our requirements and simplify as that flow down, and as well as train and collect best practices related to these individual standards that have been flowed down. Next page. And so some of those best practices that we've tried to highlight, these are examples of past supplier forums. And you know, some of them, so Sam Sujo gave a great example of PFMEA and how they use 13004 to produce defect-free engine mounts. Had GKN Newington come in and provide an example of how they used AS 13003, 13004, and 13006 to execute on a PPAP in less time than ever before, as well as deliver defect-free cases. And we had various examples of how suppliers have used other AS standards to improve their processes and reduce risk, reduce defect, and execute faster. So this has been an incredible journey for us. What the decision was by the AESQ was this was not enough. So although we have executed, published, and delivered individual standards that have simplified, we needed to come together to create a holistic new standard to really make an impact and eliminate a lot of the unique requirements for each member company. And so the rest of the presentation, and Ian is going to go into that next in terms of what did we do after this? What did we do after to improve our journey and continue to work to simplify our standards and flow down to our suppliers? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. So what I want to do now is just give a brief overview of how we created 13100, its structure, and just to pull out some of the key highlights. When Martin talks about the reference manuals later on, we'll see some of the other key new elements of 13100, such as human factors and quality audit. So some of it will come later on, but let me just take you through that quick overview. Next slide, please. So Barbara showed a similar picture to this earlier, where we were in 2012, where each of the engine manufacturers had their own individual standards. And although we've published 6 standards so far on very specific subjects, What we realized in 2018, if we carried on that way, and we've covered everything that is in the OEM standard, we'd probably end up with, it would take us another 10 years. We'd probably end up with another 10 or more standards that we would need to develop to cover the full scope. So in 2018, we took a step back and said, well, how do we fast forward that journey and go straight to the end goal, which would be to have a single harmonized standard, recognizing there will always be some elements that will be customer specific, and I'll come back to that a little later in the presentation. So that was the origin of 13,100, and clearly what we are flowing down to the external supply chain, and we expect our tier ones to flow down to our tier twos, etc. Well, one of the other principles was the things in the standard are all things that we do internally as well. So already we've seen from the published standards so far how we do measurement systems analysis, how we do FMEA, process control in Rolls-Royce are all identical to the AS standards. So what we do and we ask our suppliers to do are exactly the same. Okay, next slide, please. So if you imagine back in September 2018, we set up a small team. We met in the Rolls-Royce in London, just around the corner from Buckingham Palace. And we said to ourselves, well, how much of what we currently have today can we actually harmonize? How different are our individual standards? And we looked at the feasibility of could we actually do this? So the first big step was to look at what is it in our standards that we already have, if not the exact wording, but similar intent from each of the standards. On, Becky. So the first element was to line up the 4 individual standards, look for the same subjects, and find a way to harmonize the wording, the intent of that. And where we were able to do that, we put that into 13,100. Anything that we weren't able to harmonize, that we identified would need to stay in the future engine manufacturer supplier requirements documents. Clearly, success for us was the more we could put into 13,100 and the less we kept as a unique requirement. That's the thing we were striving for. Now, we also had a number of published AESQ standards, and we had some standards in work in progress, so things like audit, supplier management, that were due to be published. So the work on harmonization had already taken place. So it was as simple as taking the requirements out of those standards and transferring them into 13,100. However, we did take a look at how those standards were being deployed, the feedback we had from suppliers who were doing that and from our own companies. And we were able to rationalize quite a lot of those requirements to simplify it before we moved it across into 13,100 too. Many of those standards also had guidance documents, case studies, best practice material. And we didn't want to lose that, but we saw that as one of the unique selling points of our standards. So we took that material and we identified 13 reference manuals that we could create to support the deployment of 13,100. So that is all about guidance and bringing the intent of the requirements in 13,100 to life. There are no requirement statements in any of those manuals. They are merely there to support a common approach to how we actually deploy that. So if you click on one more, Becky. So the future structure is we will have a much smaller engine maker specific supplier requirements document. So for example, I can talk about Rolls-Royce. Our Rolls-Royce Sabre document is going to go down from 36 pages down to around 12 or 13 pages in the future. and we will lose about 75% of the requirements that are in Sabre version 3, because those requirements are now in 13,100. So Sabre version 4 will be a small document that refers to 13,100. 13,100 will refer to the reference manuals for additional guidance. And if you're a supplier to all 4 engine makers and deploy 13,100, overall you will reduce the number of requirements per day by over 50%. So there's a significant step in terms of simplification and a common way of doing things and that common language for quality as a result of this work. Click on, thank you, please. So when you get the standard, hopefully most of you have bought your standard and have perused it. You'll see it's 3 chapters. All of the requirements from AESQ, we've tried to align either in chapter A, which is based around the structure and the content of AS 9100. So there's an example there. So for management review in 9100, you've got 2 clauses already. We've added a supplemental clause to say, actually, there's some specific things we want to see in management review as part of the AS 13100. So we've used the same numbering system and the same structure in chapter A, and we've aligned our requirements against 9100. In chapter B, we've done exactly the same, but this time aligning it to AS 9145, which is Advanced Product Quality Planning, action part approval process. More now than ever, in the aerospace industry, we are getting the demand to make sure we're using APQP and PPAP on all major modifications and all new product introduction, whether it's from Boeing, Airbus, Gulfstream, Bombardier, etc. So it's an area that we know we need to get really good at. So there are some additional requirements. There's not many, and Carl will take us through it later on in terms of what we've added into that process. But again, we've aligned it to the structure of AS 9145. Chapter C, we look at the defect prevention tools needed to support APQP and PPAP. Effectively, that started out as AS 13004. We talked about process flow diagrams, process FMEAs, control plans. We've now added design FMEA and product key characteristics into that. So chapter C, you will recognize a lot of that from AS 13004, and it's there to support really chapter B. Okay, Becky, next slide, please. So as I said, there will be still a Rolls-Royce and a GE supply requirements document. This document will signpost to, we all require compliance to 13,100. It'll point to any customer-specific documents. So, for instance, if there's a fare document or a concession document that's unique to us, it'll signpost those documents. In some cases, there are thresholds that differ between us. So, for instance, Rolls-Royce, for new product introduction, we want key characteristics to have a CPK of more than 2. We want gauge R&R on all features, etc. Not every member company has those thresholds. So it's an opportunity in the customer specific where we can bring out some of those differences. And also, one of the obvious things is things like the IT interface. So the use of eFare, for example, is a good one, where the tool that Rolls-Royce uses is maybe different to what Pratt & Whitney and Safran are using. Okay, next slide, please, Becky. So just to pull out a few highlights before I hand over to you'll see in the document, Table 1 is a really great look at mechanism to say, well, depending on what type of supplier you are, which elements of 13,100 apply to you. So certain suppliers, if you're a material supplier or a finished part supplier, not everything in 13,100 will necessarily apply. Table 2 is similar in terms of depending on the type of supplier you are, the certification requirements you need to comply with will be different. And this is an area that used to cause a lot of frustration, I think, in the past with different requirements from different customers. So we've taken the opportunity to harmonize that as we go forward. Okay, next slide, please, Becky. The next key thing is reference manual 13009 describes a method to assess compliance to 13100. So as you go through your deployment, you'll be able to see, well, what areas do we already comply with? And I should stress, a lot of what you see in 13100 should already be familiar to you because it's already in one of the customer requirements. But it gives you an assessment to say, well, where are the gaps and what is the plan to close those gaps? And over the next 12, 24 months, as a customer, we may ask our suppliers to share that with us so we can see the progress that we're making in terms of full deployment of 13100 standard. Okay, next slide, please. So another new area for us is on for design make suppliers. This is the first design element AESQ has worked on, but we've put in some supplemental requirements. So we do specify AS9145 for all new product introduction. We are defining design FMEA as the tool for design risk analysis, etc. And things like design for manufacture, design for assembly, there are requirements that are also highlighted in reference manual RM 13008. So that is new. And we've done the same thing. If we move on to the next slide, Becky. For supplier management, again, we've added in a section. We were about to publish a standard called AS 13007. That's now in EURAS 8.4, but it takes you through the life cycle of supplier management from evaluation and supply selection all the way through to performance monitoring and supplier surveillance. Thanks, Becky. Next slide. So the benefits go back to what Barbara described at the beginning. We have a single standard. There's less requirements. We've simplified it. We have produced a set of guidance documents that will help support it. Importantly, this idea of finding a common language for quality is really enabled by this standard. So when GE or Rolls-Royce go into a supplier, or Rolls-Royce goes to do supply development, we're actually using the same tools and the same techniques. So if GE go and develop a supplier, when Rolls-Royce goes in, we don't have to repeat the same supply development work. Supply compliance is still through customer audit. The customer will do the audits. We're not asking for third-party audit schemes. And that's really, key for us, that as we deploy the standard, it'll still be evaluated in the same way. And it's a key point for the AESQ. This is probably the standard that we want to publish, and we're changing now from a standard writing organization to one that is focused on supply chain development. Okay, next slide, please. The last slides, I just wanted to say, this is my first opportunity publicly to thank the team for everything it's done. If you imagine in the last 2 years with the pandemic all around us, this core team of fantastic individuals from the member companies, every Wednesday afternoon, we got together to move this standard forward. So it's a really big shout out that we weren't deflected from that task by everything that was going on outside of our control. But it's not just these 8 people who created the standard. If you click onto the next page, Becky, you can see there's almost 100 subject matter experts from all of our companies that helped create the requirements of the standard, but also the reference manuals that we're going to come and talk to next. So this is an opportunity to give them a round of applause. I know we can't hear you giving us a round of applause. Therefore, Becky, if you click on. Okay, there's a silent round of applause. It did come with sound, but I just wanted to thank everybody for the last 2 years, all of the hard work and all of the innovation they actually brought to this to make this a a really useful, powerful standard as we go forward. Okay, and with that, I'm going to hand over to Martin, who's going to take us through an introduction to the reference manuals.
Yeah, thanks, Ian, for your introduction into the AES13100. I have now the pleasure to dig a bit deeper into our given subject. As already mentioned, AESQ not only provides the specific requirements to AES13100, we also provide guiding material, our so-called reference manuals, to support your deployment endeavor. And Becky, next. Here you see in a sum 13 reference manuals, which we deploy for free for you to use. Moreover, we also provide form templates and tools for free use for the community. And maybe now we could jump live into the AESQ webpage, so you can easily reach all of these reference manuals. And if you have a look on that page, you see in the left column the reference manuals, all the 13 in a row. And in the middle, you also see links which guides you to tools, reporting templates, forms, but also to Excel spreadsheets. And all of this information should help you to deploy the standard. And for sure, you can use your own methods and tools you have, but this should give you a best practice example worked out through our expert methods in the group and makes the deployment for you all much easier when you work on it on your own. To sum up, this page gives you all the detailed information you need to deploy AES13100. And please, don't get frightened by the sheer amount of information you will have time to digest. Anyway, most important for us is that you know and are able to explain the overall connections, the logic and fundamental relationship between all of our quality methods we deploy with our AES13100 standard. Why? Because they are only effective on our way to zero defect if they act in concert. To give you a flavor, have a look to our video on the next page.
Today, more than 3 billion passengers travel by air every year, and this is set to double over the next 20 years. These air passengers trust us with their lives. Naturally, our customers expect us to deliver defect-free products and services every single time. After all, that's our promise. But how do we guarantee zero defects when we know that inspection can never be 100% effective at sorting the good from the bad? The answer is to avoid producing defects in the first place. To this end, defect prevention activities are built into our advanced product quality planning and process control requirements as an end-to-end process, with each step being integral to defect-free production. Here's how it works. Firstly, we have product quality planning. This is where the design team works directly with the customer to understand what the product needs to do. From this, a product design can be created. Cross-functional teams then carry out design risk analysis to ensure that potential design risks are identified, understood, and mitigated. There are a number of ways this might be carried out. For example, by using a design failure mode and effects analysis tool. Next, the team designs and develops a capable manufacturing process to make the product. Any risk of this process bringing about non-conformance is evaluated using a process FMEA and any such risks are mitigated to ensure that the manufacturing or assembly process will produce defect-free products. The appropriate levels of defect prevention controls are defined using the relevant information. For high-severity risks, we must strive for mistake-proofing, while we can address other risks through statistical process control, inspection, or audit. All this is captured in the control plan. We then ensure the capability of the measurement and visual inspection methods required by the control plan. Once verified, we can start to measure the capability of the process to ensure it makes defect-free parts. The Delegated Product Release Verification Program provides a common standard for inspector competency and qualifications. Once in production, the role of manufacturing and assembly is not just to maintain the initial capability level, but to continually improve it to ensure customer and business targets are met. Moreover, data from our processes and inspection must be used to control the process by allowing us to take action before defects are made. If things do go wrong, our problem-solving process must identify and eliminate the root cause so that it cannot happen again. Furthermore, learning from the investigation needs to be fed back into the FMEA, enabling it to be captured and shared. The Aero Engine Supplier Quality Group standards have been created to provide clear requirements on how these defect prevention tools are to be effectively deployed. There is a clear expectation that each of us will deploy these requirements and cascade them down through our supply chain. The final stage of our defect prevention process is an effective audit of the quality system, manufacturing processes, products, and special processes. This review reinforces compliance and can identify further opportunities for improvement. Of course, to be effective, all these tools rely on good cross-functional working and leadership that creates an environment intolerant of non-conformance. After all, defect prevention is a key route to achieving our promise of defect-free products and services. AESQ, raising the standard for quality.
In concert with all of the requirements we publish through AS 30100, you see that principle on that picture itself. It all starts off from product design and goes further in looking into detail what kind of design risk do we have, go over the process failure methods within production, means what kind of risk do we have within production, how do we control them through the control plan, and then going into our inspection capabilities, inspection plan, and last but not least to process control. And all the experience we do throughout that journey must feed in either through ADs or lessons learned back to the process FMEAs we have in the design or in production. So this is the principle behind, and all the requirements we publish are exactly in this systematic, in this tool you can see here. So let's now go a bit into the detail of the reference manual and what the reference manuals are about. And we have picked 4 examples to show you some of the details here. And the team here will present it to you. So the first, and we will start off here with AD problem solving. Mani Ham was the team leader here. Thank you, Mani, for joining. And please go on and let us have a look into the details of RM 13000.
Thank you, Martin. So I'm Marty Ham. I'm Principal Engineer and Six Sigma Quality Leader for GE Aviation, and I'm going to talk about the RM 13000, which is problem-solving methods. So just reference back to the website. This is what it looks like. More forms are being uploaded so that you have more templates to use. The reference manual, and we'll move on, goes through a variety of topics, and I'll hit a little bit on each one. So we start off with the approach to problem solving. So typically we have a problem, we need to solve it, and it falls into two buckets. It's either a themed improvement, something that's longer term, or something that's short term because a problem has occurred and we need an immediate understanding of the root cause and the corrective action. We're also showing here how the AESQ 8D 13000 matches the ARP 9136. So they do match up and align step by step. One has steps, one has Ds, which is disciplines. Okay, Becky? So we want to show that all problem solving stems out of methodology that dates back to the 1920s, which was by Schuhart and Deming, which is the Plan, Do, Check, Act. So we've included a template to show how Plan, Do, Check, Act goes into the 8 disciplines, fits Six Sigma, and how it all fits together. So we've tried to map how different problem solving works, give some basic tools that anyone can use, and they can map it out to their own processes if needed. But we're going to define our problem, understand our root cause, find things we need to fix and go fix them, and then make sure that it worked. So this is our basic roadmap. We came up with the idea of starting with the 8D, which is what is usually asked for an escape, and then showing how to scale it down to use it as your baseline problem-solving process. So if something escapes, we need to do the full 8D disciplines, all 8 steps. But if it's an internal issue, nothing escapes, and you still want to use a similar type methodology so that you get more familiar with the types of questions and the disciplines behind it, you can scale it down to a 4D. And there's examples within the reference material as to how to add in a question without making you go all the way to 8D and stay within the 4D type concept. And then if it's even smaller, you could take it to a 2D, where you have a problem, you fix it. But trying to keep on that same idea that the 8 disciplines can be scaled down to fit appropriately problems. And the same forms can be used, and you just fill out what is in blue as you scale it down. So 8D was started in the 1980s by Ford. They used it as a problem-solving methodology to supply to all their suppliers and get the supply base following the same thing. They provided a standard template, and it allowed for good problem-solving where you could bring in OEM experts from Ford to help the suppliers with problems, and they were all talking the same language and functioning and solving the problem in the same methodology. So it was very good at finding suspect problems and then having cross-functional teams work on it. So on the right, I've shown all 8 steps or 8 disciplines, with the very first one being the emergency response and preparation for getting into the steps. So it's really 9 steps. And then how we shorten it to 4D and 2D. So I just wanted to give some scope of what it looks like. So now I'm getting into the forms. And what we're providing is 3 different templates, because depending on how your business is used to solving a problem or presenting the material out, or potentially to the OEM as to what they're used to seeing, we wanted to emulate as many different types of forms it could that cover all of the 8 disciplines. So all the questions are there, but it can fit more with what you're used to seeing and what you're used to working with. So the first one, this is the Excel format. This is the one that will be up on the website soon, but it's based on the A3 template, where it's all on an A3 page. So it can be posted on one page. You see the summary of what you're working on. You can have backup documentation on how you are justifying each step, but it's meant as a good one-page summary of it. The second one is a Word-based form. So we've used everything out of the Microsoft suite, knowing that everyone would have access to it. So this is the 3-page form. It's very similar when you look at it to what Pratt & Whitney has previously used for their supplier problem solving. So if that's the form you're used to, you have a new upgraded one that can be used for all OEMs. But again, it walks through all the disciplines. We have made sure to include a case study using each form so you can see how they act and function differently. And the last one being a PowerPoint, a two-page PowerPoint form. For those who've done the GE 3x5Y, you'll recognize this. It's been modified from that template in order to show how that works through the 8D steps as well. So again, each of them, you pick the form you like. We've developed case studies. At the moment, there are 3 in the reference material. They're all based on real problems that have been issues. And we've solved one using the Excel form, one using the Word, and one the PowerPoint. So to walk you through the steps so you can, again, get a feel for and taste of which each of the templates feels like and looks like for you. We've also included some other tools because as much as we can give you a common template that's the baseline for solving the problem, no problem will solve itself in just a 2-page, 3-page Word, PowerPoint, or Excel document. You need other tools. So what we've done is referenced in the case studies as well how you use these tools to help solve the problem, but then we've linked you to them. So we've included all the 7 basic quality tools for process improvement, and instead of redeveloping them, we are linking you to AESQ. So just as discussed earlier, we want to link to other standards that are out there. This is one way we've done that. There are templates available on the AESQ site for anyone to download for all of those tools. So there's cause and effect, check sheets, control charts, histograms, Pareto scatter plots, stratification charts or run charts. All of those are available for Excel templates. You can get those and use those. The other thing we've included, and this is downloaded off our AESQ page, is an interactive template. So it helps you go through the steps, and you'll see in the blue section in the center are all those discipline steps, how you get the question. And then to dig deeper, when you click on one of those, it will expand out to more detailed questions. So this is your landing page, and it will go back and forth between the document. It will link you to some of the forms that we have developed and embedded in here, so you can look at them, but then broken down with key steps, right? What do you have to do immediately? What do you have to do in the interim, your permanent actions, and your preventative actions? So we've tried to make it easy that you can link back and forth between the tools that will help problem solve and the form in which you're going to use. So we've tried to give all the key links here. And again, additional resources there. There's a long form explanation on each step within the Word form. If that works well and we get good feedback on that, we will develop them for the Excel and for the PowerPoint as well. But that one is a step-by-step description of how to work through the problem, typical questions to ask.
Thanks, Marnie, for giving us a deep dive into our problem-solving method. All of the attendees, please also use the chat function if you have questions. I just saw 1 question up to now. I cannot believe that everything is so clear, so please use the possibilities to communicate with us via the chat function. Next in the row is Helen. Helen will present to us the reference manual 30005 quality audit, and I can say it was a real challenge to get that established, Helen. So please, stage is yours.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you, everyone. I'm Helen Jäknegren, Director of Global Supply Quality for GKN Aerospace. Yes, this reference manual and the requirements have taken us quite some time to develop, but finally we reached a goal. So let's talk a bit about the background. Next, please. So audit is and has been a formal requirement to ensure compliance to regulators, industry certification schemes, and customers' requirements for quite some time, and not least a powerful tool to identify areas of improvements. In reality, this creates a lot of audits. So for an organization, for you as a supplier, it might be a lot of audits where every customer wants to audit from their slightly different perspective and their requirements. And in many cases, it is a duplication. They're looking for the same things, asking you the same questions. So that might be seen like a waste, but in reality, audits actually constantly find evidence of non-compliance. So there is a need to work to improve our compliance to the requirements. And by having the 13,100 requirements that is more similar, it will be easier for us all to actually comply to the requirements. So the intent was really to, in 13,500, describe a common set of requirements for audits with the intent to drive higher rigor in the internal audit programs in each organization. So you as a supplier actually have a really good internal audit program, and you also know how and when to audit your suppliers according to these requirements. And the end goal is that organizations that really can demonstrate that this internal audit program is working to the expectations and actually have de-risked their organization, finally will be subject to fewer amount of audits by the customers. So we'll go from the current state to the future state on the right side. Next, please. So just a short, brief description of the reference manual's content. So we have described our requirements for auditor training, audit planning, reporting and result, risk-based audit approach, and annual audit report. And everything is circling around 4 different audit types. As you understand, everything around this you can find on our website under the 13,005 banner in the list that you showed before. And I also want to make clear that these requirements, they are intended to direct you how to do audits internally, but also how you audit your suppliers when audit is used as a surveillance tool. Next, please. So I will describe the 4 different audit types, and I will start with the most basic and perhaps the most common one. It's all about the quality management system in the organization. That is the baseline, form the baseline of our organization's compliance to the requirements. The quality system audit intends to cover this whole system and verify compliance to the certification scheme. That could be AS9100, 13,100, as well as the customer specific requirements. And once again, since AS 13,100 now have kind of commonized the requirements, it will be less variability in these requirements for you to audit to. The frequency that is expected is to cover the whole quality management system within 3 years. And some of the most high-hitting processes that we've seen over and over again is really having a lot of findings are selected to be audited yearly. So then this is the tool for the quality system. Then we put the production in the system, the products run through the system. And then we have one audit type called production process audit. This is not really very well known within aerospace, but has been used for many, many years within automotive. And the automotive standards for audit has been one of the role model for this standard. The production process audit intends to evaluate the effectiveness and efficiency of each step of the manufacturing process. So you really kind of walk through the process from receiving to dispatch. And it intends also to ensure that the production process is capable of producing conforming parts. So here you won't follow a specific part, you will follow a process. It could be a flow, a process line, where you follow the whole process independently of the parts that is in that flow. Every manufacturing process must be audited within a 3-year cycle. And there is a hopefully very helpful approved checklist in RM 13005 that will describe for you what this is and how, what kind of questions to cover through this process. So we talked about the system, the quality management system, and the production process. And in that, the result of that is a product that comes out. And product audit is one of the audit types. The product audit is almost like doing a fair again. We have the intent to independently verify that the finished product fully conforms to the customer requirements and ensure that the production process verification process remain accurate and stable. So this is really not walking the floor and follow the product. This is to look that what came out was what we intended to get out. The frequency is based on risk, and you need to talk with your customer to agree on which parts that should be covered, because the customer, of course, see risks in your product that you might not see. And the scope and what we mean with the product audit is presented in the reference manuals. The final audit type is special process audit. And this is also well known within the industry, used for many years, and is of course intended to evaluate that the process is compliant to the requirements and that is capable of producing conforming parts. It's important to note that our requirements is that we will work with every special process to be audited yearly. And the reason for that is, of course, that a special process is deemed to be special of the reason that it's extremely difficult or impossible to verify after it's done. So the only way to make sure that we actually produce a conforming product is to control the process of a special process. You will be able to use the self-audit process list, and either that or you get an approved checklist from yourself or from your customer. So all these different audit types can actually work as a system. So you might combine a production process audit with a product audit. I think your organization's maturity will help you through this and will also kind of help you choose and pick between which audit to do when to reduce your risk, as long as the overarching requirements are fulfilled. We also have put in a requirement of annual audit report, and that is the organization's summary of all performed audit results and the themes around the improvement activities. And this is probably becomes handy for every organization because this is also expected in the management review. So you don't need to kind of do it extra, you need to do it anyhow. This report shall be available for the customer on request because the customer, your customer, will need that to look at how good are you at doing your internal audits and use that as a risk assessment on you as the organization to determine if they need to do any external audits visiting you. So by doing this, showing a plan and action to plan and the findings, you will ultimately gain the trust of your customers and your external audits will be reduced. A powerful and good audit really relies on well-trained auditors, and I can't underline enough the importance of getting people that knows what they do when they audit. That's what brings you the value that we're looking for here. So this reference manual and the requirements in AS 13100, we point out what training is needed. And it's quite extensive, but it is important. Not least, it's important, of course, if you're going to work through production process and with a product that you are knowledgeable about the product and the processes that you're auditing. And if that can't be covered within one person, you may need to be more persons doing the audits. Martin mentioned that this was a long and hard work. On many different reasons, we kept on going for quite some time, and the team was extensive. But as you can see, it was a good teamwork covering all our OEMs and the major big suppliers, helping out to make this happen. So thank you to the team. Thanks.
Thanks, Helen, for giving us these.
I have one slide to go. Just wanted to say, audit is not a pain. It's a powerful tool for the organization to constantly drive improvements. If you correctly manage it and perform it, it will reduce your risk and through the supply chain. And our goal all the way through this has been to build a set of requirements that will help us on this journey and ultimately reduce the number of audits from your customers and what you need to do at your suppliers. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And sorry for interrupting you a bit too early and giving us all of these insights into the audit requirements of our new spec we present here today. The next in the row will be human factors. Human factor requirement, which is very well known through thousands of maintenance stations worldwide, but really new for the OEM supply chain. And I think Catherine and her team did a great job and in a record time establishing this reference manual. So Catherine, please give us some detailed view on this new requirement.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So I'm Catherine Katarina from Safran Aircraft Engine, and I'm coordinating the supplier quality management system for the Safran Group. So today I'll talk about human factors. Next, please, Becky. So as you probably know, air traffic should double every 15 to 20 years. Of course, with COVID-19 pandemic, it is slow. But nevertheless, you may know that human factor is still very important considering the work stoppages we have or we had and decrease workforce. So our supply chain risks are today one of the greatest concerns for aviation stakeholders because about 80% of human errors are at the origin of our non-conformance. Next, please. So let's have a human factor of overview. So why do we want to have new requirements and considering a human factor? As Martin said, human factor has been required in maintenance organization for the past 20 years because we wanted to prevent accident and incident. More than that, human factors is often in root cause analysis of non-conformances. Also, airframers are now asking to have human factor initiatives deployed in our supply chain, and it is a real requirement now for their suppliers. It's also now a key element for the ICAO Annex 19 of Safety Management System requirements, which is due to be published in end of 2021 or 2022. So this is the reason why we have a dedicated work to propose some supplemental paragraph reference listed below. To go with these new requirements, we have added a dedicated manual, which is RAM 13010, and it has been just issued. Next, please. So how do we want to integrate human factor in the quality management system? We know that it should be at least integrated in product and service design, manufacturing and assembly, product servicing, but also much more. But these are the basic elements where we want to integrate human factors. So first of all, number one, we need to train people. Then to have an incident reporting process, something robust where we can alert when we have a deviation or incident. Of course, to do that, we need to have an open reporting culture to catch any deviation. We don't want anything to be hidden. Then a human factor investigation process will help us identifying root cause analysis. And monthly and also annually, we will want to follow and to review the system and improvement of that system. So let's see in detail how we can manage all that. First, next, thank you. Up. Okay, thank you. So first, the training. So the organization shall train its employee in the understanding of human factors and how they relate to the work that they do. Of course, the training will include a review of the dirty dozen behavior and typical mitigation actions. The training program will be repeated at scheduled interval, of course, to act as a refresher. This is very important to have that. Of course, certain roles made in specific detailed training in addition to human factors investigation. Considering incident reporting process, you can see an example of Henri Potez's aeroplane. In 1916, he was telling his employee, in your work, an error, something forgotten or bad workmanship can cause the death of one or more people. But very important, a person who makes an error must report it. An error is repairable and unpardonable mistake, but hiding, this is the most important, hiding is a crime. So the organization shall put in place an open reporting system for all mistakes and near misses, of course. Then learn from accidents and incidents to take appropriate action to prevent recurrence. And of course, after investigation, communicate the lessons learned and the preventive action plan. To do that, we need to have that human factor open reporting culture. So we need to have an atmosphere of trust in which people are encouraged for providing essential safety-related information. And also for manager, it's very important to have a tool that helps investigating responsibility in order to be fair. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Of course, human factor investigation process is very important because you might know the Murphy's Law. If it can happen, it will. Because errors are not made deliberately. And we know that several contributory factors lead to an error, and these contributory factors can be identified and corrected. So how do we propose to identify these contributory factors? In fact, one of the examples given in the manual is the reason model. This reason model shows that organizational failure must be identified because of the influence on human performance factors. Inefficient communication, distance from the field, lack of experience, and so on, can lead to an error. And we want to identify and to put in place action plan to correct these latent errors. Next one. Okay, it's okay. Sorry. I have made a mistake. Can you go back, Becky, please? I just have a last one concerning the human factors performance and improvement plan. So it is major to nominate a human factor focal point, could be a project manager, and this person will lead action plans, follow KPIs, assess maturity. These reviews need to be performed on a regular basis and approved by a steering committee. Of course, we will need to follow the milestone of those continuous improvements. Next one, please. So to ensure this initiative, this requirement is correctly managed, it is very important to promote human factor leadership. This initiative can come only from the top level management. Of course, it will be led by them. They will show example, empower the team, share the vision, and so on and so on. But to go with that top management commitment, we need to have a human factor policy, which can be part, of course, or the quality policy or the health and safety policy. But it is a commitment that we want you to use and have in your system. Thank you. Next one. So just to summarize, minimizing human errors in the supply chain is a keyword: product safety, quality, and delivery. To finish, I would like, next slide, please, Becky. To finish, I would like to give a special thank to the team. We were a small team, but we worked very well together. So thanks to everyone. As you can see, we also have an Airbus person in the team because they are very concerned by the subject. And on the right side, you have a picture of part of the team speaking one voice about human factors requirement at a common supplier facility in November 2019. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Catherine, for all of the details you give and also for the call for awareness in regard to human factors. The last example we have prepared is the RM 13145 Advanced Product Quality Planning, which will give the focus to the team effort. Quality is at the end, through all phases of a program and through all disciplines within a company. And these insights will be given by Carl Evans. Carl, please.
Hello, my name's Carl Evans. I am the APQP Technical Project Manager at Rolls-Royce. Was looking after the team.
Carl, just to say, you're very quiet. I think I had the same problem earlier. I don't know if you can move closer to the microphone or turn it up.
Is this any better?
That's a lot better. Yeah, good.
Okay, sorry about that. If you could move on to the next slide, please, Becky. So if we just start with why AS13100 and APQP and PPAP. The key thing is that the baseline is AS9145. It's a good standard. I know it well. I was lucky enough to be one of the original writers of the actual standard itself. But as a community, we recognise that in our aerospace, engine aerospace supply chain, there's a need to tailor certain aspects of the standard and complement it in a number of ways. So our goal has been very much about reducing customer-specific requirements. You know, as a collection of companies driving AS 9145 and APQP and PPAP, we've added some specifics ourselves. So very much what we've done now is come together and reduce those, minimise those in many ways. What we've also done is been really focused on establishing really good, robust supply chain practices. And these are coming from genuine experience of application of APQP by the member companies over the years. And also be very focused on the fact that when you drive and operate APQP and PPAP in a supply chain, there's an ongoing customer supplier relationship and application all the way through the levels of the supply chain. So that's been a real big key focal point. And then one of the final pointers really has been to put foundations in place. And this is really two key areas. One is that APQP and PPAP is not solely a practice that should be operated, say, against a new product design being introduced. It can be operated in a number of other change situations. So those situations are have been something that we've been focused on for the work we've done in. And the other aspect is that we've really considered the fact that this is a multi-discipline team approach, and it's about teams working together when they do this. If you want to just move on one more slide, please.
Carl, you've gone quite quiet again. I don't know if you can put a bit of oomph into it and just speak a bit louder.
I can't get much closer to the microphones. Okay. So
Like, Carl, we can't hear you at all now. Carl, are you still there?
Hello?
Not a lot, but
yep.
If you shout, I'm sure it'll be better.
Okay. So in respects to what we've done in regards to the AS 13100 content regarding APQP and PPAP, it's centered on two things. Firstly, application over time, and being supported by a process view of how it operates in the supply chain. So if you could just click on one more, please, Becky. And we've done this in two ways. One, if you are familiar with the AS 9145 standard, you'll recognize the image on screen, which is the APQP timing chart. So the standard is centered on what is required at what point in time of a change cycle, which is something that is what you would see in AS 9145. But the other thing that we also have done is actually communicated how to enact the standard through the supply chain. And this is based on a simple way of viewing application in the sense of between suppliers and customers. Any organization operating APQP would be at some point in the supply chain either a customer or a supplier. So we've also aligned the practices and requirements around that viewpoint of supply chain application. And this is through something we call APQP and PPAP flow diagram. And that is very much centered on customer and supplier management of the process. If you could move on one more, please. just to give you some insight into the sporting reference manuals, or reference manual. What you'll find in there is a lot of thought around how to apply APQP and tools and methods which support you in enacting those. What you'll find is that we've taken the approach to consider what's required. So an example would be, as part of applying APQP, there is a number of key APQP elements. An example would be peer familiar, another example would be dear familiar, and so on and so on. I could list them off. So what we've done is, for each of these, we recognise the fact that it's important to plan these well and execute these well. So what you will find in the reference manuals is not only a description of what these are, but also when you should apply them. And the example of this is what you see on screen now, which is the APQP and PPAP timing plan. This helps any user understand at what point should any of these elements be applied. But not only are we describing what and when you should be carrying out activities, we're also helping by giving an understanding of where best to apply them. So if you can move on one more slide, please. Supporting these, the elements, as an example, is what we call application tables. So not only do you want to know what elements should be applied and when they should be applied, but you would also want to know where in sense of what change situation. So as an example, if I was managing a new product introduction cycle compared with, say, a transfer program, transferring parts from one facility to another, there is differences about what elements I would use. What we have to support this application is a number of simple application tables, and these help users understand for some of the key aspects of APQP and PPAP, such as the phases, the events, the elements, when these should be applied to help better operate the process of APQP. Moving on one more, please. The last piece to draw attention about the reference manuals is they are supported with how-to information. So the example I'm showing here is the feasibility assessment. It's a really important event early on in the APQP cycle. What we have attached to that event and its purpose in life is for both design and the producing companies to come together and understand if the potential is there to produce that design. We support that with a practice, a process, a way of describing how that can be carried out. But that's also supported with tools. In this case, there's a standard check sheet. But in other cases, we have provided other tools to help enable the activities to work well in the supply chain. You could move on one more slide. I've talked very much about APQP. Another important aspect is PPAP. And what we've also done within the standard is recognised that the management of PPAP needs to be well connected with APQP. There's a number of ways this has been done and shown within the standard. One is making a strong relationship with the activities that are going on in terms of APQP and the relationship with PPAP. The other one is that across the member companies, we use things such as submission levels, and we varied what they mean and the types they are. So we have now standardized submission levels across all the member companies. But we've also recognized the need for training and identifying of key roles. So what you also find within the standards and the reference manuals is identification of some key roles, the types of training that should take place to support a consistent way of operating. Could you move on one more slide, please? What's really important to recognise about APQ in PPAP is it's not exclusive to quality as a function. It enables quality, cost and delivery improvements. It's very much a team sport. And that's been very much a centerpiece in how we've approached the guidance material. The guidance material clearly identifies the types of roles that should be involved in APQP, but also helps them enact those roles through some of the examples I've given you and many more. So it describes the what, the why, when and how for those roles to work in an effective manner. So it's really important not to consider APQP as solely a quality-based operational functional role. It is an activity that is across multiple disciplines when it operates in an effective manner. And our guidance material supports that. Moving on one slide, please. Just to finalise, I would like to thank the involvement of many people. There were some specific people named on screen now. They've supported this work over the last couple of years. And it's thanks to the input of many people from quite a few different companies that we've now got ourselves in the position of commonising a considerable amount of requirements for APQP and PPAP and supporting them with strong, good, robust guidance material through the reference manuals. At that point, I will finish.
Thanks, Carl, for your detailed overview of the PPAP process and APQP in detail. Well, these were 4 examples out of 13 reference manuals. Nevertheless, I hope you all get a bit of a flavor what the reference manuals are all about, and maybe make some appetite to go to the AESQ webpage and have a look on your own. You now earned a pause of 15 minutes, and when we are all back, Emmanuel Vivier will give us some insights about the AESQ subject matter interest groups. And up to now, please enjoy your coffee or whatever you like to do. Thanks.
Hello. I just check, can everybody hear me?
Can hear you, Ian.
So we can hear you.
Marvelous. I just changed my headset. You spent
Sounds a little
fortune on a
quiet.
headset. Still quiet, is it? Okay.
Yes.
Better? Oh,
Try again.
Try again, Ian.
right, is that better?
Yes.
That is better. Yes. Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Okay. Fortunately, I've got a nice simple job now, which is really just to introduce the speakers for the afternoon session. So in the first half, we talked about the standard, the reference manuals, and give you a flavour of some of the content. The second half is all about deployment and how we can support all of the companies in the deployment of 13,100. So in a moment, we'll hear from Emmanuel, who's going to take us through the subject matter interest groups and the engagement through communities of practice. Lisa will take us through the training that's available to support deployment. Osa is going to take us through some typical deployment roadmap to get from here to full deployment. And then June is going to take us through the AESQ and how to stay involved and engage with the work that we're doing as a group. Before we go on to Jamie, who will summarise some of the key points from the afternoon and give us a chance to answer some of the questions that have come in. So please keep asking the questions, send them to all panelists so we can all see the questions, and we will take some of the key themes at the end of this session. So at this point, then, I'm going to hand over to Emmanuel to take us through the subject matter interest group.
Yes, thanks a lot, Jan. So first, hi everyone. So I'm very proud to be there to discuss with all of you. I'm more used to discuss with my direct customers, so it's a great pleasure to discuss with suppliers and supply chain as well. So we'll discuss very quickly what is the subject matter interest group. So behind this odd name, actually this is pretty simple, and it's something which is directly related to all the job that was presented before, and this job is not off the ground job. So Becky, you can switch to the first one. Okay, so first, what is this subject matter interest group? As it says, it's a group which is dealing with a subject matter interest. The real purpose of the group is to promote the effective deployment of the key quality subjects, and these quality subjects are distributed around the different chapters. These groups are made up with subject matter experts from each of the AESQ member companies, and it's really accountable for the content of the requirements and all the associated reference manual. So for the AS 1300, the second point of the second purpose for this subject matter interest group is really to promote the deployment of the reference manual as the standard as well. And the last one, it's also to include all the materials that are required and that are helpful for everyone to deploy efficiently all these standards and reference manual. Okay, so if we go next. So if we just go more in details on the accountabilities for this subject matter interest group. First, as I said, these subject matter interest group are responsible for the content of the requirements inside the standards. That means that they are in charge to check that these content are still up to date, that they are still reflecting the global aim of the standard, and that they are reflecting as well all the best practices that we are seeing every day in our global supply chain. what is right so for the content is also true for the best practice and the reference manuals. So the group is also responsible to ensure that all the content of the reference manuals are also up to date, and that they will keep the use for everyone in the supply chain. The next accountabilities refers to the training support. We are convinced that all the suppliers and the OEMs as well have to leverage all the training staff to make sure that everyone has the best access to this training and can also efficiently deploy these best practices. The next one, so next accountabilities is around the communication. The group has also in charge all the stuff related to the communication and to promote what are these best practices and these requirements, so all these best standards. And this can be done through the website, through some dedicated events, through some dedicated publications and so on, and some webinars as well. And last but not least, and I think that Jan already spoke a little about that, the communities of practice. So each subject matter interest group also shall install communities of practice that I will describe just in the next chart. So community of practice. For me, it's one of the key points from the subject matter interest group. As I said before, these groups are made up with a specialist on this subject from each of the member of the AESQ companies. The point is that the community of practice is really the relation, actually the pathway between this group who is in charge of these contents for the standards and the reference manuals, and the relationship with all the supply chain, so all the suppliers and everyone, even if they are not members as well in the AESQ. So that means that this community of practice, what they are doing and how it works. First, this community of practice are holding some events to share the knowledge, to capture the best practices as well, and to collect and to keep all this data from around all the supply chain. These events, of course, can be in person, and usually that's what we prefer to do. But of course, in the current situation, it's also it can also be online events. The second step is that this community of practice also help to measure the maturity of the deployment that can be done through surveys or similar over support. The next one is to capture the existing knowledge. So as we said, during the events or even through the website or some kind of network, the idea and the purpose of the community of practice is also to capture everything, every good idea that can come from any of the suppliers or any on the producer dedicated to one of these subject of matter interest. As the intent to be captured at the community of practice level, and the purpose for that is to share the wider as possible this content. As we said also before, as one of the purpose and the aim of the group is also to maintain and to keep all the standards up to date. The idea is also to capture through this way every ways for improvement for the next issuance of the requirements and of the reference manuals. So that's where we are going to the last icon with the connecting people. It's the real purpose of the community of practice to connect all the people around one specific subject matter interest to make sure that all our standards, so the AS 13100 and all the attached reference manual will keep the latest standards and the latest best practices all around the supply chain. Maybe we can go to the next chart. So this is just the list of the current subject matter interest group that are existing. So you will recognize the list of the reference manual we already presented before, and that's not by chance, it's just on purpose. And so you will identify through each of these subjects the ones that were presented and on which you could share some ideas, or if you will, to participate to such community of practices. Maybe to the last chart. And on this one, we will describe more in more details how you can connect or go for materials or information about the subject matter interest groups. So when you are going on the AESQ website, on the first page, you will recognize on the right-hand side, you will have the subject matter interest group link. And when you are clicking on this one, you have the list of all these groups, and each of these groups are currently preparing. So maybe they are not, everyone are not published today, but it should be done in the coming days or weeks. So each subject matter interest group is publishing one page, and in this page you will find the name of all the members of this group. So you may recognize some interface that you are working with, depending on the companies, and you will find as well all the links with the support attached to this subject matter interest. So the reference manuals, the standard, and so on and so on. So again, the real purpose and the aim of this subject of the subject matter interest group is really to keep to keep all the standards and the reference manual up to date with the best deployment and the best implementation within all the supply chain. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Emmanuel. I think it's really important step for AESQ. As I said earlier, now we have the standard and the reference manuals. Our focus really becomes on effective deployment. The subject matter interest groups and the communities of practice are absolutely fundamental to making sure that we work together to get a common interpretation and the ability to make best practice the common practice. So already seen loads of great questions coming in today. Those are the sort of discussions that we would want the communities of practice to be working at, to learn from each other, and to actually make sure that when we come to write the next version of the AS 13100 or to update the reference manuals, then we can actually capture all of that goodness in there. So as Emmanuel said, go and explore the website. You'll see things are at a different stages of maturity at the moment, but there is more information on everything that Emmanuel has just been through on the website. So the next key area is training support for the deployment of 13100. So I'll hand over to Lisa to take us through that.
Great, thanks, Ian. So welcome to all the attendees today. My name is Lisa Clavalou, and I lead the group quality organization at Pratt & Whitney, who has been involved in the AESQ since it was founded. In order to support the effective deployment of AS 13100, the AESQ, in collaboration with SAE, has developed training materials. So the training will give you the knowledge needed to meet the intent of the standard in your organizations and with your supply chains. To refresh our goal in creating AS 13100, the AESQ developed a single harmonized set of requirements, which are supplementary to AS 9100 and AS 9145, to establish a common language for quality, to flow the same set of requirements to suppliers, and to lower the risk driven by multiple requirements to manage. So today, earlier in this forum, you've heard about the AS 13100 standard and supporting reference guides. Now I would like to share some information about the training materials that are available. If you go to the next slide. The goals of our training program, I want to start by describing the key goals and intent of the training. So it's to support the deployment of the standard, to provide the knowledge needed to meet the intent of the standard, to provide a focus on the key concepts, the impact to compliance and the customer requirements, and how your business performance will benefit. And importantly, to simplify and clarify the requirements. The training series was designed to provide a common platform of training with consistent information and consistent examples. Next. So I'll talk, we have a video. The executive overview is located on the AESQ website. We're having some technical issues, and so I'd like everyone after this forum to go access. There's an executive overview, which is the first level of training I'll get into in one moment. Next. So the required training within the standard, the first is the DPRV, the Delegated Product Release Verification training. This training has been available since 2015 and provides common training for DPRV personnel, those that have delegated product authority. The next two trainings I'm going to talk about today are pertinent to the AS 13100 standard. So the first is requirements training course, which will ensure that quality leaders responsible for deploying the standard are adequately trained. This course is also recommended for functional leaders responsible for processes impacted by AS 13100. And then third, we have a Quality Foundations course. This will be available this coming fall. It's under development now. This will be required for quality leaders supporting the design, manufacturing, and assembly operations in support of AS 13100. Again, this course will be available in a few months in the fall of 2021. And if you go to the next slide, I'll talk a little more in depth about the three levels of training that we've designed. So the first level is the executive overview. That is available today. There is no cost to view the executive overview. It's a video series, and it's about 35 minutes long. And it provides executive perspectives from across our industry, detailing why compliance is so critical to your company's success. The next level is the SAE AS13100 requirements course. This course is self-paced, it's online, it's about 10 hours long, and you will have a full year of access to the course. There is a $399 charge for this course, and this is a comprehensive course on AS 13100. It's required for quality leaders and recommended for other functional leaders who are engaged with deploying 13100. And then the third level is the SAE Quality Foundations course, again, available this coming fall. This will be either virtual or classroom in person. It's 3 days. It will have a cost of $1,095. And this will be required for quality leaders with responsibility for supporting the design, manufacturing, and assembly operations. It will be recommended for design engineering, manufacturing engineering, and operations roles. You go to the next slide.
Often, organizations tend to jump to solutions or attempt to fix a problem without adequately addressing its underlying cause.
The 8D approach can take some time to conduct. For this reason, you need to consider whether containment actions are needed up front while the approach is in progress.
AS 13100 sets out to create a single harmonized set of requirements that are aligned to AS 9100 and AS 9145.
The AS 13100 requirements training. The requirements course is required for quality leaders with responsibility for deploying the standard. It's also recommended for the functional leaders responsible for creating or managing processes that are impacted by this standard. The course will provide the knowledge needed to assess, design, maintain, and comply with the intent of this standard. And if you click to the next slide, I'd like to talk briefly about the Quality Foundations course. This is the course that's under development. It's designed as a 3-day course, either in person or online, virtually. It's designed to bring together the key quality systems and processes to show how they work as a system, with the goal of preventing defects. Our goal is 0 defects. This course supports quality leaders in understanding how these processes do work as a system and what successful deployment looks like. It's also recommended for other functions, such as engineering, manufacturing, assembly, tests, and those focused on business improvement. This course is in development currently. If you click to the last slide, I'd just like to summarize. This AS 13100 requirements training, again, it's about 10 hours long. It's online. It is self-paced. It's offered in 7 languages. This is the course that you will have access to for 1 year after you purchase the course, and that one was $399. The Quality Foundations course will be offered virtually or instructor-led. And the DPRV training is currently delivered in 7 languages in a virtual format. And so we've included the website link if you need more information about the training. And so now I'd like to introduce Osa Amare from Helmet to describe the expectations for deployment.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Very much appreciated. Next slide, please. Well, my name is Osa Mari. I'm a quality leader at Helmet Aerospace. And now that the AS 13100 has been released, and we all have seen a lot of information today, especially on the training and the benefit of the standard. What is the next step? The next step is basically deployment. And what AESQ has done is provide a model for deployment of this standard. And the expectation is that if you get this flow down from your customer, you are to be compliant by January 1st of 2023. The model that has been put together here is not cast in stone. Depending on your resources and your organization, you can modify this to the level of granularity that you can handle, right? But let's start from element number 4 that we have, which is basically the virtual supplier forum that we're having today. We've seen a lot of information, and I really want to encourage everyone that is participating in this forum today to make sure that you share the information that you've gathered here today with your organization. That is very, very important in preparing your people for the deployment of the AS3100 standard. In addition to that, we really want to make sure that you train your people that are going to be involved in the deployment process. Lisa just talked about the various levels of the training that is available to you. I think that is very, very important, because when the people understand the requirement, then moving to deployment is going to be very easy to go through. But I also want to encourage you to understand that you are not alone. You know, the OEM is slowing this down to you as you walk through the standard and so forth. Make sure that you know, you give the deployment process a joy by engaging your OEM as well. If you have questions, I know that they are always going to be available to support you. And then, of course, you really need to make sure that you have an internal stakeholders meeting. As Lisa alluded to, whoever is going to be the key individual leading the deployment is going to be working with a lot of other people. Those people really need to be on board, and they need to equally understand the requirement in order to move it forward. Now, one of the things that we have seen, which is basically, this is based on people that have deployed the previous standards that have been harmonized now into this AS3100 standard, is that you need to start thinking about a gap analysis. That is, you need to integrate the AS13100 into your quality management standard. And we've seen that the people that have successfully done that have been very, very successful as well in deployment. You don't want to treat this as an ad hoc activity, or because you don't want it to be an afterthought, right? Integrating this into your quality management system is the best way to go. And that is what we definitely want to encourage you to do, because people that have successfully deployed the previous standards that were released, that is what they did, right? Once you integrate this into your quality management system, you're going to probably have to do a gap analysis, understand where you are today and what gap exists, and then putting a plan together to basically make sure that you close that gap. In closing that gap, some of you are probably already having this integrated. If you have not integrated it, then you need to think about basically integrating the AS3100. If you've already done it before, all you basically need to do is to go back to that quality management system that you have, remove all the previous standards, and basically replace it with the AS3100 requirement. Again, draw on the resources that have been provided to you today. We know we are presenting a lot of information to you. Leverage the website, leverage your OEM as you go through the deployment process. That is very, very important. Now, once you have understood the gap that really exists, then the goal then is to basically make sure that you develop a plan to basically close those gaps. And as you close those gaps, it's going to require basically updating your procedures, right? You update your procedures, and once you update your procedures, then you need to do a plant-wide or organization-wide training for your people. Prepare your people for what is to come so that they understand why we're doing this. Remember, those that are close to the source of the work, is very, very important for them to understand the value that this is creating for them in order to bring them aboard. Again, we have a lot of material that you can use to do that. And again, the training material is available to basically leverage in doing that. Once you've done your gap analysis and you close your gap analysis, you've updated your procedures, then you have now a new system that basically, you are going to be deploying. And as you deploy it, again, count on your OEMs to support you, including sometimes, bringing your OEM in as a voice of the customer to basically talk to your employees. And I've found that to be very, very helpful, not just to my leadership team, but to the people that are working at the plant level, understanding the requirement of the customer and so forth. Now, this deployment and the AS9100 standard that we're having in our hand today is basically an impetus for our journey towards zero defects, right? So it's very, very important that people understand that. And you need to leverage this in conjunction with your AS9100. Now, once you've closed the gap, roll this out, you really need to make sure that you do an audit, internal audit of the process. And that is a very good way to basically ascertain whether you have integrated this very well and in terms of your deployment process. And whatever you find that is still a gap, you need to create action items around them. And those action items you need to work on and make sure that the gaps are closed in preparation of basically rolling this out and making this compliant to your customer requirements. We share this with you today because it's based on success stories of people that have deployed the previous standards. And I just want to reiterate that this is not cast in stone. It's a model for you to use, and you can change it and make sure that it's appropriate for your organization. This is a very powerful tool that is very simple here that you can easily share with people in your organization, and also share with your suppliers as well, because the information that we're sharing with you here is not just for the supply base, but also something that you can cascade down to your sub-tier. And that is what we wanted to kind of share with you today, because the journey to compliance is very, very important. And we do believe that the elements that we have covered here would definitely help you to basically go through that whole process of deployment while you are drawing on the resources that we have at our website, the AESQ website, drawing on your OEM. And when you have questions, please don't shy away from contacting AESQ or contacting your OEM to kind of clarify that for you. And more importantly, for this to be successful, make sure that there's an engagement within your own organization. And one way to do that, make sure that you have a sponsor or you have a single point of accountability that is driving this, so that you can galvanize the momentum needed to basically have a full deployment process completed before January 4th, 2020. That is all I have.
Thanks, Jose. Okay, so I think it's good to reflect on what Lisa and Jose have just been through. A few years ago, when we'd launched some of the AS standards within Rolls-Royce, we had to train all of our manufacturing engineers, quality engineers, etc., in the new expectation of those standards. And it was very different to how we had done it before. And we weren't alone. I think in aerospace, although a lot of these tools stem from automotive and have been around for 30, 40 years, I think somehow in aerospace we adapted, we convinced ourselves they were very, we make very complex parts, and therefore, it needed to be different to automotive. And our learning was it's fundamentally not true. So we had to go through extensive training of all of our teams to understand the new model and new alignment. And that's why the training programs are absolutely key to this, because the benefit of having a common language for quality, common processes, we all really have to change how we have always done things, actually align to that, to get the maximum benefit from it. So the training, the foundation training and the requirements training have been designed exactly to do that, to get that alignment. and for us all to get calibrated on what does a good FMEA look like, what does a good gauge R&R look like, or a good control plan look like, so that when we are looking at these things and assessing them, we are using the same principles to do that. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Lisa. Next, Jun Sakai from IHI in Tokyo, Japan, is going to take us through some of the different ways you can stay engaged with the AESQ and in the development of what the AESQ does next. Jun, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jun Sakai from IHI Corporation in Japan. IHI has a partnership or joint venture with most of OEMs and they provide engine parts or module to each OEM. So expectation is high for the common and simplified QMS standard. IHI has joined in AESQ as the 10th voting member last year. So I'm glad to have this opportunity to meet with you all. And as a member of AESQ, I'd like to thank all the attendees stayed online and keep listening to these presentations. You might be feeling tired by now, but also you have started to wonder, I need to do something or thinking how to get started to implement AS13100 in your quality management system. So to answer such question, AESQ has many options to obtain further information or learn in depth or work together depending on your needs. So I'd like to show you around how to get involved in this session. So as we presented so far, AS13100 has been finally published last month, and the target of implementation has been set for the end of 2022. To support entire OEM and supply chain to work toward this goal, AESQ provides support to the area of training, communication, and deployment. The communication support is to provide information which might be useful for you. That could be receiving newsletters, checking on SNS like LinkedIn, or joining supplier forum or webinar events. Taking a training course should help you enhance your knowledge or understanding of a certain subject. Or you can join in community of practice, have a communication, or create a closer relationship with the subject matter experts. And finally, you'll be welcome to join and take part in this AESQ activity as a member of a different level. For selecting any of these options, you can start with a quite simple step. It is just clicking the menu in AESQ website. So going next page, please. One more back. So the first step is very simple. Go to AESQ homepage and click Get Involved menu. And then it will take you to the different options. You can sign up to receive AESQ newsletter, or becoming AESQ member is for a corporate level, or you can join in SAE G22 standard writing committee as an individual. If you sign up online and to receive the newsletters, you will receive the newsletter monthly, and you can learn about the latest activities in AESQ. And for the corporate membership, there is two membership levels. One is AESQ Strategy Group member, that is specified in the original AESQ charter and provides support and guidance to entire AESQ activities. The other is AESQ member, which is open to organizations engaged in the aero engine supply chain, who can provide resources and representation of senior leader or subject matter expert. Again, you can send application by online. And in addition, for other menu from other menu in the homepage, you'll be able to find AESQ event such as supplier forum or webinar session, subject matter interest group webinar, taking a training course, and so on. And you can also check the video which we missed to show you today. And thank you again for attending today's supplier forum. You can download presentation from previous events, and this time you'll be able to download video and the presentation for today. And the people in the different time zone can review the video later. And the next coming event is SAE Mobius webinar on May 19th to have a special look at AS13100. Barbara-san and Larry-san from G Aviation will be the speaker, and there will be Q&A opportunities. But this event is not only for G supply chain. So here you can see how effective the common language for quality could be. And lastly, and probably the most importantly, AESQ would like to encourage a lot of people to join in the community of practice for the introduction of AS13100. Community for different subjects that a lot of people can find support from the subject matter experts. Please check in to the subject matter interest group page and sign up for webinar. Start checking the LinkedIn and so on. It will be growing as we work together. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. So there's lots of different ways in which you can get involved and stay engaged with AESQ. And as we've said, I think throughout the afternoon, a lot of that information is on the on the website. So please go and explore it and stay in touch. So just to kind of summarize, and then we'll lead into questions, I'm going to hand over to Jamie Clifton from PCC Structurals. James, over to you.
Thank you, Ian. Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie Clifton. I lead global quality for precision cast parts. So I'm going to start with a brief recap, and then we'll go into our questions and answers. So as summarized in this presentation, this has been a multi-year collaboration and journey to harmonize requirements, obviously with the publishing of the AS13100 standard and reference manuals. Now that we have the standard published, we need to perform a gap analysis, as Osa described, then develop a plan so that we're compliant by the end of 2022, which includes a self-assessment and a customer audit. There is a reference manual, 13009, which provides guidance for accomplishing. So it starts with the requirements and understanding requirements, but the key to success is making sure that we've got cross-functional understanding across the business and not just limited to quality. So the training to the AS13100 requirements, the quality foundation courses, that Lisa summarized are going to be key to this deployment. And then beyond that, the journey doesn't stop there. We need to continue to expand collaboration. So a couple ways that we can get folks involved is, one, consider getting your organization to become an AESQ member and take part in the subject matter interest groups. That adds value in that, one, a seat at the table to understand and be part of this journey. The other is improve your knowledge and capabilities by getting involved with the AESQ communities of practice. And here, not only learn from others, but share some of your best practices as well. So through these initiatives to improve quality and reduce variation, we will be able to improve our deliveries and our business performance. And the other thing we highly encourage, we've shared, the AESQ portal is a tremendous resource for knowledge and communication, which you've observed with the material shared by Marnie, Helen, Catherine, and Carl. So highly encourage you use that website. There's case studies, there's training material. The reference manuals are published there. Just a fantastic resource to be used. So for the questions and answers and ground rules, really we'd like to focus on the AS13100 standard and training, the AESQ reference manuals deployment and transition. What we'd like to avoid is commercialism, pricing, ITAR, and export control. So again, we'd like to stay focused on the material that was presented today. And with that, let's start with our questions. So what I'll do is I've been pulling the questions down off of the chat, and what I'll do is try to walk through these questions. So Becky, are the videos available online for viewing, and where are they located?
Yes, if people go to the AESQ website, the videos are all online. The homepage has a banner for AS13100. Just click the button for more information, and it takes you to one page that has everything related to AS13100 listed on that page.
Okay. Ian, I'm going to ask you, but it's maybe a joint response. So is the method for design risk analysis standardized across the OEMs?
Yeah, so the decision of the design team that actually developed the 8.3 requirements was to have a common design FMEA approach, whereas I think in the past there had been a range of different approaches that were accepted. Going forward, and in alignment with AS9145, we decided to have a standard approach to design FMEA. So when you look at reference manual 13004, there's a whole new chapter in there for design FMEA and product key characteristic identification.
Okay. And Ian, while we have you, I think I know the answer, but will there be different language versions of the standard?
Well, actually, Becky, I saw that one coming up. I thought there's a question I was going to get Becky to answer from a SAE standard point of view. My belief was it's always only in English, but I will ask Becky.
Yes, so typically we always issue it in English. We do have the option to translate it. It's not something we typically do, but we can work with some of our resellers if there is enough of a demand for that.
Okay, a couple questions for Helen around the audit program. Will you need to be certified, qualified, accredited AS13100?
So we've had some discussions around this, but it is not the plan.
So as to be compliant.
So you need to be compliant, and your customers will check your compliance. And by kind of actually presenting that one customer have done a compliance audit in the annual audit report, your other customers will read that and probably, hopefully, also recognize that they might not look at all the aspects or reduce their audit scope. It's not a promise, it's rather an opportunity.
Yeah. And thank you for answering the next question.
Sorry, Jim, I was just going to add to Helen's answer, because it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that, Jamie, you brought up the challenge to the AESQ. I think you said something like in a 70-day working day quarter, you had 78 days of auditing.
Yes.
So the approach that Helen described earlier, how do we reduce the amount of auditing as a customer we have to do? Well, part of it is, how does the customer get confidence in what the supplier audit program is? So firstly, Helen described, there's 4 types of audits: production audit, production process audit, product audit, system and special process. We know that works in automotive. And if we can demonstrate, or if the supplier can demonstrate a robust audit program, that allows us to feed that into the risk assessment for that supplier, which is in RM 13005, to say, well, actually, we don't have to audit all of these requirements, or we could maybe, these are different options to consider. Maybe we'll do an audit of the audit process, or maybe we'll only do the product specific elements of the audit. So that is one of the things the subject matter interest group and the communities of practice will be a key focus, I think, for that group, is how do we get a balance between what an organization does internally and therefore what the external audit needs to be. And if we can create that level of confidence, we should be able to back off those external audits. That's the long-term plan that RM 13005 will enable us to achieve. Okay, Jamie?
Okay. Yes. So, Catherine, one of the questions around human factors is, are we talking specifically about quality mistakes or safety issues that may arise?
Yes, I think we speak about both. Because we need to use human factors as many times. The philosophy is not only for one type of problem, is any kind of deviation, any time of incident, and so on. So of course, it is for safety issue, but the initiative, the requirement we want is to deploy human factor broadly in the company.
Yeah, it's a key point. I know internal.
Is my answer? Sorry. Go ahead.
Right. I was just going to say that I know internally we're trying to harmonize these. So these are not just quality tools. These are tools that can be applied across the business. So
exactly. It is, for example, I have seen companies who are using it, and it was used before in health and safety, with health and safety policy, because it is exactly the same kind of issues.
Okay, thank you. Carl, what is the difference between level 1 and level 2 APQP and PPAP, and could you describe the differences?
Yeah, so I believe this is in the context of my first slide. And when we describe level 1, we are talking about the requirements of AS9145. And then the level 2 requirements is referring to the additional requirements within AS13100. I think that is what the question was pitched at.
Okay. And Carl, another one for you. So concerning initial process capability with APQP, The question says, it experiences a lot of pushback on sample size to get through the data points to calculate a CPK. Any thoughts that you can share on guidance that other OEMs are using?
I guess a few things to pick up on that is that we, in terms of APQP and the content, the other reference manuals have a role to play in that. So there's our reference manual 13.006, which gets into SBC type activity. So there's content within the suite of manuals what can answer some of those questions. That's what I would sort of point to, but I think I'd need to understand a bit more about what the specifics are around the point what's been raised. It's quite a broad topic is being shared there or asked about.
Yeah, I know, Carl, because one of the key feedback we get from our internal plants and the suppliers is when we're introducing a new product to get the CPK, you know, is it 20 samples, 30 samples? How can you establish a level of capability of a small batch size? So you're absolutely right. If you look in 13,006, it's been addressed there, as is for doing a gauge R&R of small sample sizes. There's guidance in 13,003. Now that's not published yet. It's our last one to be published, but it should be out in the next week or so. Managing small sample sizes when you're trying to do a verification or capability assessment, there's guidance in there on how that could be done.
Okay. What I would add to what Ian's just said is that when you go into the reference manual for APQP, you will find it will point out to the other reference manuals where it's appropriate. So this particular topic will be coming up on initial process capability studies, and you'll find it points to the associated reference manuals as well to help users.
Okay. I think this one will go to Marnie and Catherine. So it's around human factors and AD. So the question is there a good practice to ensure organization does not use human factors as an excuse during problem-solving AD? And should human factors be a contributing factor? What guidance could you provide?
So in the 13,000 problem solving, we do actually have that in a case study showing the concept of when you push it to human factors, it's not to put blame on a person, but look systemically of what in the system failed the person as to how it could happen. So we try to make sure that there's never a blame on a person, but push it back to the systemic. So that should push towards human factors that allow the system to fail the person.
In that case study, is that?
Yes, it means.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It means that human error is not a root cause in AD. When we see human error in an AD, we don't accept it. We want to have a further explanation, and we want to have more investigation related to that human error, that human factor. So once again, human error is not an answer in AD. Okay. And we have examples that we can share also.
And are they posted on the website, AESQ website?
Yes, that one of the 3 examples goes into exactly that, and we will be developing more case studies.
Okay. Martin.
And also one thing something we want to do with the new groups, because we will moving on and updating our manual. I think the 2 groups, the AD group and the human factor group, will join and maybe provide a common tool when humans are involved, because there is some checklist that you can use in an AED to find the real root cause behind human errors. And we have some tools available, and we are testing them at the moment. So they are not on the website, but soon they could be.
Okay. Martin, a couple questions for you on the reference manuals. So could you provide a short explanation of the content of the reference manuals versus the AS? And also, is there a timeline for when the MSA 13003 and the human factors should be posted? I think we lost Martin.
Okay, so I can answer the last two. So human factors should be up this week, Becky. I think we've had all of the editing has been done on human factors.
Yes, human factors will be up.
Okay, and I think on MSA, we've had the final editing inputs. I would imagine that's going to be about a week away from being posted on the site.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jimmy, could you just repeat the first part of that question? I caught the last one, first part.
Yeah, so the first part was a short explanation of the content in the reference manuals, which are downloadable as no charge versus the previous AS with the same number.
Okay, so let me give you an example. So in AS 13003, Measurement Systems Analysis, if you were to read that standard, there were some very clear requirements. So there's a threshold table about what levels you could get to for gauge R&R or attribute agreement analysis. They were very much hard requirements, but also in that standard, in the appendices, there was a lot of guidance material, like we just spoke about with Carl. So how would you do a gauge R&R when you only have 2 or 3 samples? Or how would you do a correlation from a CMM to another CMM? So what we did as part of the process was we took out the hard requirements from 13003, and you will find those in AS 13100. All of the guidance and best practice material that were in the old standards, they are now in the reference manuals. So a reference manual will not contain any requirement statements. It's only there to give an acceptable means of compliance guideline to meet the AS 13100 requirement. And we've done that on all of the standards that were there. So I did see another question earlier, are we adding 13100 to the existing standards? When 13100 becomes executive in January the 1st, 2023, the other standards will then disappear because all of those requirements are in 13100. However, 13100 has to work alongside the new customer requirement manual. So from now till the end of next year, those standards will remain as a published standard, and only after a supplier says, yeah, I now comply to the new Rolls-Royce Sabre document and 13100, those older AS standards will retire. Okay.
Okay, thank you. The next one is about, and Ian, this one's going to come to you. So it's around commitment to deploying these standards from the engine manufacturers. But it also asks, so Rolls-Royce, Safran, GE, Pratt bought into deployment. Are they going to implement internally? And also, is Boeing and Airbus considering deployment?
Okay, so we don't upwardly require our standards. We don't flow it up to our customers. However, you will notice on the website our contact in Rolls-Royce in Airbus is something called Emil Colongo. And one of the things we are working with Emil on is doing a self-assessment to 13,100 for Airbus. So what they have asked is, can we support a review of how would Airbus, what are the compliance gaps that Airbus would have to 13,100? And I think they recognise that a lot of the goodness that's in 13,100 and how we can actually drive and address a lot of the issues that they see across their supply chain too. But going forward, what we are in the process of doing, so I can speak for Rolls-Royce, maybe some of the others can talk about their timeline. We are balloting Sabre version 4 as we speak, and we should get that published hopefully within the month of May. So you would be able then to see the two documents side by side, 13,100, Sabre version 4, and hopefully you will see that there are far fewer requirements than you have to comply with today. So that's the sort of timescale. I think, from my understanding, GE is similar, Pratt & Whitney quite similar. By the middle of this year, those changes should have happened and been adopted. So unless one of the other engine manufacturers has a very different approach, it's that sort of timescale. So it still gives everybody 18 months to see the new standard and 13,100 together as they work towards full compliance going forward. And the last part, which I said before, all of the current AS standards that are published, and I'll speak for Rolls-Royce in this, but we have adopted those as the way we do things internally. And it really helps because we've learned all the lessons. So when our teams go out to suppliers, we are talking from real knowledge. So when you see human factors, RM 13010, absolutely, that is our model to deploy human factors within Rolls-Royce. Supplier management 13007, those are the processes we use in Rolls-Royce. So we aren't asking anything about suppliers that we don't do internally.
Yeah, Ian, this is Barbara. I thought I'd just comment real quickly on GE's approach. Very similar to Rolls-Royce. So we have already published our augmented S1000, which points to 13,100. At this time, and I got a great question from an internal quality engineer within GE saying, our S1000 actually got bigger, not smaller. So what's our plan? If you read through the new S1000, it is larger because it includes the current S1000 in Part A, and then the 13,100 in Part B. So as we're going through this transition, we can't flip to the new requirement, from one day to the next. That wouldn't be fair to all the suppliers as we incorporate a lot of these new requirements. So we have both. You're able to comply to the new 13,100 starting today through the end of next year, but you're also compliant to adopt and continue to comply with our current S1000. So that's why it looks a little longer now, but at the end of next year, the Part A will be deleted and we'll just stick with the 13,100.
Okay.
Okay. So Jamie, I'm just conscious that it is 4 o'clock, and nobody is more surprised than me that we've actually got through all of that material in the 3 hours. We said it couldn't be done, and we've done it. So I'd just like to thank everybody that's presented for preparing it and presenting today. Done a great job. It's again a great team effort. You would have heard us every now and again when we were struggling shout, Becky, can you help us? Becky, can you move on? I'd like to thank Becky Lemon of SAE, who helped coordinate this event and actually pull all of the material together, which, as you can imagine, is not an easy job. So she's done a fantastic job of keeping us all on track and getting us ready for today. And absolutely, I'd like to thank everybody that's attended. The questions, we will go through all of the questions and make those available on the website too, and close that off. This webinar will be made public too, and the materials, the actual material slide will be made available to everyone too. I hope you stay in touch. I hope you stick with it. Loads of great questions that not a simple written answer is going to address all of that. So come along when you can to the communities of practice. Join the LinkedIn pages and social media and keep the dialogue going as we go forward. We need to change the quality performance of our entire supply chain. Our customers are demanding it, our businesses are demanding it. I think this is one of the key steps, one of the key foundational elements of how we actually change the game and actually raise the bar for quality across the aerospace sector. So thank you, everybody, and hope you stay safe, and hopefully we'll come across each other again at a future event. Thank you.